Good afternoon, Fay. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. So I believe you're here to do a session on apprenticeships for us.
I am. There we are. Am I all right to start, Jack?
Yep, go for it.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Well, thank you very much for having me today. My name is Fay Lane, and I work for Health Education England, who essentially we are the arm's length body of the government who deal with all training and education in the NHS. And my particular expertise is apprenticeships. So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit today around apprenticeships in the NHS, how to go about applying, where to find them, and the kinds of things we offer. And hopefully this will work. There we are. So just to give you a little bit of context of the team I work within and the work we don't just do apprenticeships. We also work with our NHS trusts and the wider NHS, so GP practices and things, to enhance their work experience, get them to offer things such as traineeships, and you may even have heard of T-levels as well. We do a lot around widening participation and progression into degree and higher level apprenticeships as well. So apprenticeships is what we're going to focus on today. Now, there are many routes into the NHS. It's not just going to university and getting a degree and job. Many people will join us either via an apprenticeship route. Maybe they've done an employability program, work experience. Some people join us straight, almost off the street into a job straight away. So there's lots and lots of routes. There's not really a one-stop shop, if I'm honest, in how to get into the NHS. But obviously apprenticeships is going to be a key driver. So what is an apprenticeship? An apprenticeship is basically a program where you develop knowledge and skills. So you get that knowledge part from either going to university or college or via a private training provider. And then you get that skills part by actually doing the job, essentially. Hands-on, gaining those skills on the job. So it's a fantastic mixture of both of those things. And it's always related to a real role. So we know that you're going to go into an actual role at the end, which again is a fantastic opportunity. But really to bust some myths as well. So I guess if you had asked me what an apprenticeship is maybe 10 years ago, the things that would have come to mind are things like maybe plumbing and hairdressing. And we have moved so far from that in the past 5 years in particular, that there's you can now do an apprenticeship in everything from kind of GCSE level all the way up to master's level. We have a huge breadth of apprenticeships you can now do in the NHS specifically. So it's not just around hands-on trades anymore. We also get the myth a lot that apprentices are paid peanuts. You will get trusts that do pay the apprenticeship national minimum wage, but we have some really, really amazingly salaried apprenticeships as well. Some of our engineer apprentices, for example, start off at £24,000. Which is a fantastic opportunity, isn't it, to get a qualification and be paid at the same time. We get lots of myths as well around, apprenticeships don't lead to jobs. They absolutely do. Over 95% of our apprentices in the NHS go on into full-time jobs or further education complete. And obviously apprentices just don't just make the tea as well. So to kind of give you a flavour for, it's all right me saying, apprenticeships are great, but actually what does that mean? So obviously as the NHS is it and over 1.2 million employees, we contribute to a pot of funding called the Apprenticeship Levy, which is over £220 million a year we pay into that, and we can only use that funding to pay for apprenticeships. So the investment, that we're putting into apprenticeships in the NHS is quite significant. And every year we deliver on average around £28,000 new apprenticeship starts. Last year we had 21,000. It was a little bit of an odd year due to COVID, but that's across 86 different apprenticeship standards as well. So it's not just your typical healthcare support worker and business admin. And I'm going to tell you a bit more about those in a moment. So what does this mean though, the NHS offering apprenticeships? Well, it's an alternative route to university maybe. It's a debt-free way of getting a degree in training. It's a way to earn as you learn, and picking up all that relevant work experience and skills that employers really, really want. So it's it adds some real value, not just to us as an employer, but to our learners that we put through apprenticeships as well. So to just touch on some of the things that you could potentially undertake as an apprenticeship route. I couldn't fit them all on this slide if I'm completely honest, but there are over 70 healthcare specific apprenticeships, everything from becoming an apprenticeship midwife, a sonographer, an occupational therapist, a podiatrist. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but there, as I say, there's over 70. And if you're sitting there thinking, clinical's really not my bag, there's also a whole host of non-healthcare specific apprenticeships that we use in the NHS. So, for example, all those really important back office functions that really keep us ticking. So things like, clinical coder, finance, if you're really into IT and payroll, data analyst. So there's a whole wealth of other non-clinical apprenticeships out there as well that we currently use. And this is just a breakdown of kind of what we were up to last year, if I'm honest. So as you'll see, nursing associate was one of our biggest apprentices in the NHS last year, followed really closely by business admin and healthcare support. I do envisage that this will change quite drastically over the next year or two, because we've just approved all of our allied health professions apprenticeships, so things like physio
Hi,
and
Fay.
OT.
To
Hi.
interrupt, we've had some issues actually getting on with access onto this. Your slides haven't been moving, I'm afraid.
Oh gosh, let me just have a quick look. Can you see
Now
any of that?
they've literally just moved now to the
Oh
top
gosh.
20 apprenticeships slide.
Would you like me to go back, or
Would that
shall
be
I just?
okay?
Yeah, it's no problem at all.
Thank you very
I
much.
will fly through these very quickly. What I'll do is, since you can see that, I won't put it on to the read mode. I'll
Sure.
just do it as that.
Lovely. Thank you so much. And sorry
No,
to all our viewers.
no apologies. There's me talking away to you all, thinking you can see these slides. So obviously I've taught you there about what an apprenticeship is, so I won't cover that in much depth either. And we've done the myth busting. So what I'll skip to, so you can really see it in detail, is currently the specific healthcare apprenticeships that we offer. Obviously, this isn't all 70 as I was talking about them, but just to give you a flavour. Then moving on, as we were just talking there, around things like HR support, IT technicians, so non-healthcare specific apprenticeships as well. And then again, hopefully you now all see this graph, so this now makes more sense now I'm talking. So the nursing associate, as I was saying, one of the biggest apprenticeships we offered last year, followed by business admin, healthcare support worker. But as I said, we envisage this to really, really change and mix up, and we'll be offering more things like physiotherapy and OT and radiographer moving forward. But last year, this was what we kind of did. So I'll move on to some of our career pathways that we've been able to create using apprenticeships. And what I really wanted to show you on this slide was that actually you may really aspire to, for example, be a registered nurse degree apprentice. But it may be, for whatever reason, that our trusts either A, aren't offering quite yet, because we do find that quite a lot, that they aren't yet advertising externally, or it could be that you maybe need to gain the English and maths requirements first. So you may enter as a healthcare support worker first, and that's completely fine, because what we're able to do in the NHS is work you up all of those levels. So it may take you slightly longer, but essentially we all come to the same output at the end. That's to give you a flavour for one of our nursing pathways as well. And absolutely, we can do the same for paramedic. Our ambient services have been amazing over the past 2 years, working on their apprenticeship pathway, and that they now have a level 3, a level 4, and then the degree apprenticeship as well. So there's another pathway that will start opening up in the next couple of years. Again, not just talking about clinical, but things like IT. So the opportunity there to, join the NHS in an IT support role and work your way up again, and maybe get your degree as well eventually. So essentially what we're doing within the NHS is it's not just all at that degree level, it's not just all at that master's level, but actually that we have our levels 2s, our 3s, our 4s on academic level anyway, which allow that career journey. So it's really exciting time. And if you are on the lookout and you're aspiring to be maybe some of these level 7 degree apprenticeships, don't be put off, and maybe consider entering maybe at that assistant level instead. So what do we look for when we're recruiting apprentices? This is probably the biggest question I get asked. So really, we're looking for someone who's not looking for the easy option, because sometimes you will hear terms such as, apprenticeships aren't the most academic, and, university's better. But actually, if you really think about it, by doing an apprenticeship, you're doing a job, you are studying at the same time. So it's actually not the easy option. It's really for someone who's going to put that graft in, or after someone with an appetite to learn, because there will be episodes of independent study, where you're going to go away and put everything you've learned at college or university into practice in the workplace. We want enthusiasm. I cannot tell you enough how far enthusiasm goes, and an interest in the role. There is nothing better, having done lots and lots of interviews myself, someone who's really interested and passionate about the role that they wanted to go into. And again, someone who is going to, show our NHS values and beliefs as well. I have put a little link on there where you can go and use the free tool to test yourself against the NHS values and constitution. So what is the application process if you were looking to apply for an apprenticeship? Well, there are two main places you would find our vacancies. One would be on NHS Jobs, and one would be on the Government Find an Apprenticeship website. Now, what I will say is when using NHS Jobs, sometimes our trusts don't always label their apprenticeships as apprenticeships. So sometimes it's worth filtering out and clicking into them because they may have hidden it within there. We are getting better at that, but absolutely you might have to do a little bit of digging. Unlike university applications, there is no fixed deadline for some of our apprenticeships. They are essentially advertised all year round, so keep an eye out. And I guess my top tip on that is, sign up to NHS Jobs, set up your notifications for anything with the word apprentice in, anything that may be band 2, 3, 4, or 5, or the keywords you're interested in, and get those notifications straight into your inbox, and then you'll not miss anything. So there are lots and lots of resources and information out there. I've just put a couple on there, if I'm completely honest, because there's a whole wealth of guidance out there around what apprenticeships are, how to apply for them, and some top tips. I would say, as well as registering on NHS Jobs, it's worth registering on the Government Find an Apprenticeship website as well, because sometimes businesses advertise on there and not always on NHS Jobs. So it's best to cover all bases maybe and register on both of those. Social media as well is a key place. I just this morning, as I was driving over here, before I set off, was looking at on Twitter, and two of the trusts that I work with in the Northeast, if you can't tell from the accent, are currently advertising their apprenticeship vacancies on Twitter and some of their engagement events. So Twitter is a really key place to look out for upcoming vacancies as well, and get maybe a bit of an insider tip. You can use the NHS Apprenticeship Vacancy Snapshot as well, and I've put the link on there. So just some of the key messages before we move on to any questions that I can hopefully support with. But some of the key messages from me today are, degree apprenticeships, they are equivalent to the two undergraduate degrees. It's not the lesser one. I was once presenting in Leeds where someone said to me, I'd love to do the nursing apprenticeship, but I want to, do the real nursing degree. And they're both exactly the same. So, it is exactly the same as going to university and getting the degree. It's just you go and you get that hands-on experience instead. Apprenticeships are an alternative. It may be that having gone through education for such a long time that maybe you want to do something a little bit different, and that therefore maybe this is the option for you. And it's a great start to a career. It's not just, getting a job. It's actually, we're creating lifelong careers. 90% of our apprentices in England, they move into employment after qualifying, and 71% actually stay with the same employer. So, employers are investing, they're keeping their apprentices, they're not just having them for a year and then getting rid of them. So, it is a lifelong option. And as I was just touched on before, when I showed you some of our pathways there around how we can move from level 2 apprenticeships at entry level all the way up to degree, we can provide career pathways. So you don't just join us and then that's it, you're stuck in that role forever. There is the opportunity to progress and do new and exciting things. Now, as Health Education England, we do have a website called Healthcare Apprenticeship Standards Online, HASSL for short. And on there is lots and lots of information and case studies. There's some tools on there around, am I ready to apply for an apprenticeship, some checklists and things like that. And we have lots and lots of those resources on there. So do go and have a look if you get a chance later on today. And I will stop speaking at you and hopefully answer any questions anybody has. And I've just seen Laura's put in the chat there to say, what is the difference between undergraduate and postgraduate degree? So essentially it's the level. So an undergraduate degree is at level 6, and that is typically what learners tend to do after they've done their A levels. Postgraduate degrees tend to be what people go on and do after they've got their first degree. It's a level 7 qualification. And I hope that's answered that one, Laura. Does it affect the job you want to do? Not necessarily. We had the way we've written a lot of our apprenticeships recently is that they are written at both level 6, so that undergraduate level and postgraduate level. So we are finding that new entrants, so people off the street necessarily, are coming in and doing the undergraduate level of our apprenticeships, but then people who maybe are coming to us with a first degree, and it doesn't have to always be clinical, it could be in something like history, they sometimes decide to do the postgraduate degree. But it all depends on which option our universities are offering, because some will offer the postgraduate and some will offer the undergraduate. But it doesn't really affect the job you do because it qualifies you at the same level to do the same job as everyone else. And then I've got, what is the study and work ratio for an apprenticeship degree and how many days working in 1 week? Now that's a really good question. So it does vary. I don't have a solid answer if I'm completely honest, but what typically, and the off the cuff kind of rule of thumb is that apprenticeships tend to be 20% off the job. Now that means that you spend 80% of your time in the workplace and 20% studying. And that's kind of the rule of thumb. It does vary a little bit for some apprenticeships where you maybe spend a little bit more time. For example, nursing tends to be almost 40 to 60% off the job, given the clinical content of that apprenticeship. So it does vary, but it typically is 20% off the job. I'll just scroll up a little bit because I have a tiny screen to make sure I haven't missed one there. What are these slides available to look at after the event? I think so. Jack may be able to type in the chat or answer to say if we will be sharing them, but I think they are being shared after.
Yeah, the session's been recorded, so it'll be uploaded to the Health Careers website once it's all been edited and processed and everything. So
Yeah,
keep an eye on the social media and we'll tell you when everything's been uploaded.
Oh, fabulous. So all those snazzy links I put in should hopefully work as well. Then we have the NHS tools value that you mentioned before. I've missed it, please. Yes, so that will get sent round, as Jack said, after the event. But if we get 2 minutes at the end, what I'll try and do is I'll try and pop the link in the chat as well. Is there an age limit on apprenticeships? Is another question from Samantha. Absolutely not. We tend to sometimes have a little bit of a lower age limit, so it is for anybody age 16 plus. We have no upper age limit. Currently in the NHS, our oldest apprentice is 75. You may find, however, that for maybe some settings that are more, say some mental health or secure settings, may insist that their learners in particular are 18 minimum. So sometimes we do get things like that, but typically it's 16 plus. When will the apprenticeships for medicine and dentistry be available? So for medicine in particular, you've probably read in the news that we are developing a doctor's apprenticeship. That is very, very early days and is currently out to consultation at the moment. So I don't think I could necessarily put a date on when it will be ready, but I can absolutely say, it's in development and it's something that nationally everyone's working very hard on. What A levels are required for an NHS apprenticeship? This again varies. So typically what you may find is for degree apprenticeships that our universities and NHS trusts may insist that in particular you have some kind of level 3, so A level type study, plus English and maths at grade C or 4 as a minimum. Now that is typically because some of our trusts will say actually come to us on a healthcare support worker apprenticeship, and we will give you English and maths whilst you study with us. But others do insist on it. So it's really important that when you're looking at NHS jobs and you're looking at vacancies, click on that person specification that appears down the right hand side and have a look, because that'll tell you which qualifications they're looking for in particular. Is there a diagnostic radiography degree apprenticeship? There is indeed. So we now have a diagnostic radiography apprenticeship and a therapeutic radiography degree apprenticeship as well. Now, they were very, very newly launched at the back end of 2020. So we've only just started to see some of our universities start to provide that, and we only have a handful of learners on those two apprenticeships at present. So it's still very, very early days in those, but I would say, keep an eye out for things like assistant level diagnostic radiography jobs on NHS jobs, because that kind of might give you a bit of a foot in the door if that's something you aspire to. But hopefully in the next 2 to 3 years, we will see more of those advertised externally. I'll just have a quick scroll up. Do I know which ones offer it? We've just done this as an exercise as well to see. I don't know all of them nationally. I can only speak for the North East and Yorkshire if I'm completely honest, but they are in the North East. Teesside University up here are offering diagnostic radiography, as are Sheffield Hallam University in Yorkshire. Had another question from Alexander. So, will it be a struggle to study and work comparing those who only go and do the degree course? I wouldn't necessarily call it a struggle, if I'm completely honest. I think sometimes there's you have to almost sum up what's best for you. So it will be that little bit extra, if I'm completely honest, because you will be, doing the day job and studying at the same time. But don't forget that you get that protected time as well released from the workplace to do your study. So you'll have that as well. It won't be like doing it twofold at the same time all the time. But it really depends what you're after, because for some people, as much as I, walk around saying how phenomenal apprenticeships are, for some people, going to university and having that experience is really half of what they're after anyway. So it could be that, you really want that university experience and maybe that's the best option for you. But it could also be that you're looking for something where you actually are getting those hands-on skills while studying at the same time. So it's really about looking at how you best study, what you're hoping to get out of it, and what the best option is for you. Is there a degree apprenticeship available for speech and language? And do I know which universities are planning to offer it? So there is a degree apprenticeship, just as very similar to radiography, very newly approved. And currently our universities are just kind of looking at how they align their courses and if they're planned to offer it. So it's probably best looking at who offers the traditional course presently. And you're probably looking at the likes of things like, and again, I can only talk for my region and I do apologise, but the likes of Sheffield Hallam, I know Birmingham City University again offer speech and language therapy, as do Coventry, Essex. There's a whole host of them, but I do know that those that currently offer the traditional course, so the undergraduate course, are looking to offer the degree apprenticeship as well. Now that's a good question, Alexander, around whether the doctor, so the medicine apprenticeship, is likely to roll out in the next 2 years. Now, I've helped to develop quite a few apprenticeships now, and some of them we have developed at a phenomenal rate, and they've been ready within kind of 12 months, which is kind of the ballpark figure for developing a brand new apprenticeship. The minimum duration to get one off the ground is about a year. But I have also worked on an apprenticeship that took 4 years to develop because it was quite a complex one. So I really wouldn't want to say, yes, it will definitely be ready in 2 years' time, because looking at some of the things we worked on in the past, it could be anywhere up to that 4 years mark as well. So I wouldn't want to raise anybody's hopes that it'll be ready really shortly, but we are working really hard on that one. We may have run out of questions now, Jack.
Yeah, there were some great questions and great answers, so thank you for that. It's really interesting. Yes, there's so many roles in the NHS. I think it's good to know that there's more ways in than just a typical university or going straight into a job. There are lots of ways to sort of earn and learn as well. So thank you for highlighting those.
No problem. I've just noticed Alexander's put one last question in because he's obviously uber keen on the doctor apprenticeship, which is amazing. We do sometimes have the ability to, when someone starts a traditional course, APEL them into an apprenticeship. The problem we may have with the doctor apprenticeship doing that, however, though, is if you've received any kind of government funding for that previous, you wouldn't then be able to access the apprenticeship. So it's probably something we need to look at in detail and maybe draw up some scenarios once it's approved to say, you know, could people join it at a later point coming from the traditional course or not?
What do you think of the benefits of doing a course like medicine via an apprenticeship route rather than the traditional academic route? Because I'm a third-year medical student myself, but I'm also a healthcare assistant as well. So it's interesting because you see some of the very junior doctors come through sort of the F Foundation Year 1s and 2s and very clued up with the sort of academics of it, but how perhaps a hospital works and things like that is sometimes a bit lacking. So perhaps an apprenticeship could kind of fill those gaps.
Absolutely, Jack. I think that's one of the aims to, you know, give some people some very early on hands-on experience. But one of the key drivers of this apprenticeship is around increasing diversity and widening participation, because we know, and not to stereotype anyone, but we know typically our doctors maybe come from white middle class families. But actually, by doing the apprenticeship and opening up that as an additional access point, we maybe will get a more diverse workforce, which in my opinion can only be an amazing thing because we then reflect the population that we're serving. So hopefully we'll see, you know, some fantastic additional avenues for young people coming up.
No, that's a brilliant point. And if there are any more medical applicants watching, then I think what you mentioned a good point about the sort of widening participation. I came through one of those schemes that all the universities have their own widening access schemes. So have a look at those if for any course as well. Universities do them, so have a look at those if you're looking. But I think an apprenticeship would take that a step further, which is what we need, I think.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Well, if there's no more questions, we can wrap it up slightly early and say thank you very much for your time today, Fay. If I could direct you to, if you go under sessions and head to the speakers lounge just for a debrief about how you found everything today, that'd be brilliant.
That's no problem at all, Jack. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.